Discover the incredible journey of a poor bus conductor who changed a billionaire's heart forever. In a bustling urban city, where dreams get lost among the towering skyscrapers, one man's dedication stood out like a beacon. Samuel, the 28-year-old bus conductor, began each day with the sun rising over the horizon, a soft, hopeful glow illuminating his worn face. He carried the weight of the world on his shoulders as he navigated the city's gritty streets, a gentle giant of a man embodying the American dream. His father, a proud veteran, may have been lost to the harsh realities of life, but Samuel's heart beat strong, anchored to his single mother and younger sister. He awoke each morning, not for himself, but for them. Samuel's bus was more than a mode of transportation. It was a lifeline for the community. With every stop, he shared warm smiles, kind words, and small acts of kindness like giving his lunch to a homeless man or pausing the bus so an elderly woman could safely cross the street. He was a local hero in a world that often felt unforgiving. Everybody respected him. They knew they could trust Samuel to keep their spirits high in their darkest hours. One fateful day, as the sun dipped low in the sky, casting a golden hue across the city, an unexpected passenger boarded, James Whitman, billionaire and headline grabber. With his designer suit and expensive shoes, James seemed utterly out of place, more suited to the high-rises that loomed above. A mishap with his luxury car left him reluctantly taking the bus, dismissively tapping at his phone, oblivious to the vibrant life unfolding around him. But then he saw Samuel, pouring love into his work. He watched as the conductor handled a sudden crisis. A local school was on the verge of closure, threatening the future of countless children. Samuel sprang into action, urging his neighbors to unite and fight for their community's heartbeat. The fire in his words ignited a spark within James. Despite their differences, it was a shared humanity that connected them. However, as their unlikely friendship grew, misunderstandings surfaced. Samuel was skeptical, unable to comprehend that someone like James could genuinely care. Meanwhile, James struggled with societal assumptions about people like Samuel, confused by the man's strength and determination. Their conversations became laden with tension, reflecting the societal divides that defined their worlds. Yet, moments of vulnerability revealed deeper truths. Samuel learned that wealth didn't guarantee happiness, and James discovered life's meaning extended beyond profit margins. As Samuel continued to inspire the community, something shifted within James. The shutters on the school threatened to fall, and just when he considered funding a new vision to uplift the community, doubt began to creep in. Rumors swirled, painting Samuel's relentless passion as self-serving, igniting fear and judgment that clouded James's newfound resolve. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As community members gathered, anxiously whispering about the fate of their school, Samuel steeling himself for a confrontation that could shatter the connection he'd built with James. Hope mixed with despair hung thick in the air. Would they both find a way to bridge the gap of misunderstanding, or would the fragile bonds they created unravel under the pressures of their worlds? The answer loomed dangerously near. The stakes had never been higher, and uncertainty gripped their hearts. Change was at their doorstep, leaving everyone wondering, could they rise above their differences, or would they succumb to the fears that kept them apart? The community held its breath, awaiting a resolution that felt just out of reach. Samuel stood in the middle of the bus, the air thick with tension, pulse racing as he caught sight of James perched at the back, deep in conversation with a few of his affluent friends. Those designer suits and polished smiles felt worlds apart from the lives the other passengers lived. Samuel's heart sank as the whispers around him grew louder, tinged with doubt and suspicion. Did you hear? They say that guy might back out, one voice murmured. What does he know about us? Another added with a scoff. Samuel clenched his fists, trying to block out the murmurs that swirled like storm clouds. He was the bridge carrying them toward change, but now it felt like the bridge was ready to crumble. The hope surrounding the school's future flickered like a candle in a gusty wind. All right, folks, he announced, his voice rising above the chatter. We need to talk about the school. We've been waiting too long for the help we need. This isn't about me or about him, it's about our kids. They deserve a chance. But there was hesitation in the air. Samuel scanned the faces of familiar passengers, searching for agreement, for the fire he knew they had in their hearts. Instead, he found doubt reflected back at him. Each face, instead of determination, showed fear of being let down again. James shifted in his seat, the looks of uncertainty from the community now weighing heavily on him as well. He stared down at his phone, pretending to be absorbed in it, but he could feel the weight of every doubt resting on him. He wanted to be the answer they sought, he wanted to help without being judged, but the rumors wrapped around him like a chokehold, squeezing the breath from his ambition. James! Samuel called out, suddenly aware that the moment had come for confrontation. I know you can help. You see what this community is. Don't let those doubts stop you. We'll face them together. James looked torn, caught between two worlds. He caught the eye of an elderly woman sitting near Samuel. A glimmer of hope in her eyes revealed the silent trust that remained there. His thoughts raced. How could he abandon that trust? But at the same time, the whispers crept in, telling him that loyalty to his friends was pivotal. It's not that simple, Samuel, James eventually replied, his voice shaky but firm. I want to help, but he hesitated, struggling over the words. They need to trust me first. The two men stood on a precipice, facing off as the bus slowed. The surrounding passengers shifted back and forth, waiting. Samuel could feel the weight of their hopes hanging in the air, but was the fire of determination enough to combat James's fears? You need to show them that you care, Samuel urged, his voice rough with emotions. It's not about money. It's about genuine connection. And just then, when the bus came to a halt, it was as if the world outside had paused, trapping the delicate moment in time. Samuel dared to reach out, hand extended toward James. Join me. Let us fight for what matters. James looked at Samuel, then at the passengers. He saw their worried faces, the weight of expectations, the lurking shadows of fear. In that moment, he felt the tug of possibility, the chance to disregard the whispers, the chance to stand united, but would he, in fact, choose the path towards understanding, or would he retreat into the cocoon of his privilege? As the tension built, he took a deep breath, mentally reaching for an answer that could shift everything. But before he could respond, the bus doors swung open, and a sharp voice sliced through the air, startling them both. We need to talk, Mr. Whitman. It was a reporter, microphone in hand, eyes burning with curiosity. And in that instant, as Samuel and James exchanged glances filled with uncertainty, it became clear that their future choices, and the fate of the community, were about to spiral into a chaos they'd never anticipated. Would James step up or step back? The moment for action had arrived, and with it, the stakes had never been higher. The reporter's voice echoed through the bus, slicing the moment in two. Mr. Whitman. Can I have a word? She stepped inside, her eyes locking onto James, unaware of the swirling tension between him and Samuel. The air grew heavy, the other passengers leaned in, curiosity piqued, turning their fear into anticipation. Hesitating for just a second, James's brain raced. This wasn't an easy moment to navigate. The weight of the reporter's gaze felt like an anchor, pulling him deeper into a situation that could either ignite hope or expose his fears. Samuel, sensing his pause, urged him with a quiet conviction, talk to them, James. This is your chance. Ignoring the trembling in his hands, James looked into the eyes of the reporter. What do you want to know? His voice came out steadier than he felt. Rumors are swirling that you might withdraw your support from the school project, she challenged, her pen poised over her notepad. Is that true? The words landed like a punch. All around, whispers intensified. Samuel's heart raced as he watched James shift, uncertainty lining his features. This was a defining moment for him, but would he rise to the occasion or let the ghost of privilege take over? Those fears began to bubble again, the doubts, the privileged life he lived, the expectations of his friends. Right now, I'm just James started, then hesitated, searching the crowd for the trusting face of the elderly woman and the others who relied on him. "I'm figuring it all out. I care about the kids, really I do." That flicker of honesty was enough to grab the reporter's attention. "But what about the community's trust? How can they rely on you?" Her questions came fast, intent on piercing any facade. Their eyes met briefly, and James felt a surge of recognition. These people weren't just a community, they were a family. Pain, struggle, and fierce hope painted their faces. He thought about his own childhood and the kids who had fought so hard for a better future. "I want to help," James found himself saying, his voice rising in passion. "I'm committed to this project. I want to back out, not now." The words broke free from his chest, filled with urgency. "We can change lives together." Samuel's heart lifted. This was the man he knew was inside James all along, waiting to break out. Encouraged, Samuel stepped closer. "Show them you mean it, James. Tell them you're in this fight with us." The passengers leaned in, hesitant yet hopeful. James took a deep breath, courage rekindling in his heart. "I'll hold a community meeting. I'll listen to your concerns, I'll share in your hopes. Together, we can build something my friends can't even imagine. We can prove that change is possible if we work together." A murmur rippled through the bus, a mix of cautious optimism and disbelief. The elderly woman smiled, her eyes twinkling. Others began to nod, and a sense of unity started to fill the space where doubt had once thrived, but then the reporter's voice interjected, cutting through the new hope in the air. "And what about your friends, Mr. Whitman? Will they support you in this?" James grimaced, memories of their smug faces flashing in his mind. Could he convince them? Could he really push against the current of privilege that had sheltered him for so long? As the bus jerked forward once more, James felt the weight of the world resting on his shoulders. He could sense the shift within him. This wasn't just a moment, it was the beginning of something bigger than he or anyone else could conceive. Samuel looked up at him, the fire in his eyes burning bright. "You know this is just the start. Prove to them that change is real. That you're real." But would James find the strength to challenge his world and stand up for the community he now held dear? As the doors closed with a finality, he knew the stakes were rising higher. This was just the beginning of a journey that would test not only his will but the bond of a community desperate for change. Can one man really make a difference? He wondered as the bus rolled forward, carrying him toward a future where doubt still loomed. But with hope flickering at the edges, he was ready to step into the unknown. Would he step out of his comfort zone, or would the ties of privilege drag him back into the shadows? As the bus moved through the streets, the chatter buzzed with nervous excitement. James sat in silence, grappling with the questions raised during that pivotal moment with the reporter. Samuel kept glancing over, every now and then giving him a reassuring nod, but James's mind was racing. He needed to do more, something bigger than just words. "Hey," Samuel said softly, breaking the uneasy quiet. "You said you'd hold a meeting. That's a great start. You really meant what you said back there?" James turned to him, fully aware of the seriousness shimmering in Samuel's eyes. "I did, but it's not enough, is it? I need to actually step up, somehow. A school meeting is a perfect beginning." "You'll get everyone involved," Samuel urged. "Talk to them about your vision. Show them you care." With a deep breath, James nodded. He couldn't shake a lingering doubt, though a notion that many might see him as just another privileged kid who played at politics without any real skin in the game. "What if they don't believe me?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Then show them they should," Samuel replied, his conviction evident. "Lead by example. You got a chance to connect with your neighbors now. You can't let it slip away." The bus rolled to a stop, and James felt a rush of determination. "You're right. I'll call the meeting tonight." The words came out stronger than he felt. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the neighborhood as they stepped off the bus. The air was thick with the smell of fried food from the nearby vendor, but James felt a tight knot in his stomach. He took a moment to absorb the bustling community around him, the kids playing soccer, the laughter of families echoing in the twilight. As they walked toward the local community center, the doubts that had crept in earlier began to build up again. Would his friends really support him? Would they back the talk of change he was trying to ignite, or would they mock him for even suggesting it? "Hey, where's your head at?" Samuel's voice snapped him back. I don't want them to dismiss my efforts because of who I am, you know? I want them to believe I can make a difference, James admitted, frustration spilling out. Samuel stopped and looked him straight in the eye. You are not your family, James. You can breathe new life into what that school means for these kids. Focus on what you want to create, not what they think of you. James took a deep breath, absorbing Samuel's words. They resonated in his soul, coaxing out the flame he had felt earlier. Okay, let us do this. I'll meet with them tonight with a plan. I want to let their opinions hold me back. They entered the community center, and the atmosphere was electric. Familiar faces turned towards them, and for a moment, James panicked. What if they all expected him to unveil a perfect solution? What if they only saw him as the rich kid playing at leadership? Samuel nudged him forward. You've already started by being here. Now just speak from your heart. James stepped into the center of the room. The mixture of curious and skeptical eyes met his. It was now or never. Everyone, he began, thank you for coming. The room quieted, and he felt the weight of every person there. I know who I am. I've lived a life wrapped in privilege. But I want to fight alongside you. I see the needs of our community, and I am committed to this school project. Let us make this right, together. His heart raced as the truth spilled out, vulnerability rippling through his words. Would they accept him? As the first applause erupted, a hesitant and tentative sound, the glimmer of hope ignited once more. But just as he began to feel the warmth of support, a familiar voice seeped through the crowd from the back. So you think you're going to save us, huh, Mr. Whitman? It was Jamie, his childhood friend, already shaking his head with a smirk. James's heart sank. This was becoming the ultimate test of his resolve. Can James truly bridge the gap between his former life and the community he now stands to support? He wondered, as tension hung in the air, charged with accusations and judgments. Come on, Jamie, James said, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He could feel the weight of the room shifting from cautious optimism to skepticism with his friend's taunt. I'm not here to save anyone. I just want to help. Don't you see that? You think a few words are enough to change things? It's not that easy, Jamie shot back, his tone edged with sarcasm. A few in the crowd snickered, while others exchanged glances. James's heart raced, anxiety slicking his palms, but he couldn't lose his stride now. Jamie, this isn't about me, James said, his voice steady. This is about all of us. We all know the school needs help. There are real issues here, and sitting back and doing nothing isn't going to solve them. He felt a surge of courage rise in him, igniting a fire as he spoke. Real issues? Like what? A fancy gym or new textbooks? Jamie replied, crossing his arms. You're basically saying we should bow down to your vision of change. Are you really going to pretend you understand our struggles? That hit hard. James felt anger boiling beneath the surface. He wanted to shout that he did understand, that he had spent countless hours learning about the school's needs, about the lives of the kids here. But then he took a breath. You're right. I can't claim to know your struggles. But I've seen what's broken. We need to work together to fix it, not fight against each other. The room held its breath, the tension thick like a fog. Would they rally behind him, or would Jamie's words continue to cut through the air like a blade? He wasn't just fighting for their approval, he was fighting for trust. What do you suggest then, Mr. Whitman? Jamie's voice dripped with mockery, but beneath it was the spark of curiosity, a crack in his armor. James swallowed hard, his mind racing. I've spent time talking to teachers, families, kids. We need to focus on creating opportunities, better resources, after-school programs, mental health support. It doesn't just stop at funding. We need to build a community that cares for each other. That starts with us. A few heads nodded, and James took that slight encouragement. What if we held workshops to discuss everyone's ideas? Each of you has experiences that could bring about real change. We can do more if we all collaborate, he pressed, desperation creeping in. A silence fell as voices tangled in a web of hesitation and doubt. But then, a hand shot up from the back of the room. It was Sarah, someone James hadn't spoken to much, but he recognized her fierce honesty. It's not that we don't want things to change, James. It's just that talking doesn't fill our stomachs. I don't want to be part of another broken promise. James felt that knot tighten in his stomach again, gnawing at his confidence. I get that. We need action, not just words. I promise to strive for tangible results. Maybe we can start small. Get people invested and involved. I need your support. We can hold each other accountable. I can't do this without you. A murmur began swirling in the room. Jamie's expression shifted, his arms uncrossing slightly as he contemplated the prospect. James felt a flicker of hope but knew this was just the beginning. He had a mountain to climb and a long way to go. I'll help, Sarah finally said, her voice steady. But only if we're serious about seeing change for once. I want commitments, not just talks. Agreed, someone called from the back. Then another. The applause that followed was louder this time, building momentum like a wave. With each clap, James felt the tension dissipate, and hope blossomed anew. But with a newfound clarity, this would require more than just him stepping up. It needed to be collective. All right, James said, feeling the surge of a team rallying behind him. Let us set the date for our first workshop. But as he turned to share the plans, Jamie stepped closer, his expression somber and contemplative. You might want to watch your back, James. This isn't going to be easy. Are you going to stand by and help, or just throw stones? James asked, the determination in his voice unwavering. Let us see if you mean what you say, Jamie replied, a challenge hanging in the air between them. The battle had only begun, and uncertainty loomed like a cloud ready to burst. Would the community unite under James's cause, or would Jamie's words of doubt find their mark? He could feel the pressure building, but that spark ignited a flame of resolve within him. What would be the consequence of their divisiveness, and how could he transform it into a driving force for change? As the applause faded, James stood at the front of the room, charged with an energy that felt foreign yet familiar. He realized this was at the moment he had been waiting for. He had taken the first step into what felt like a storm, a whirlwind of emotions and wills clashing together. The fear hadn't melted away, but now it twined with a fervent desire to prove that change was possible. The concrete walls of the school dripped with history, whispers of the past echoing through its hallways. But today, it felt as if a new chapter was being etched into its legacy. James looked out at the faces before him. Each one held a story, a struggle, a longing that mirrored his own. Eyes flickered with curiosity, but doubt still flickered too, especially from Jamie, who loomed at the edge, a skeptical specter. Let us make a plan, James said, breaking the tension. For the next workshop, I'll bring in people who know how to implement our ideas. We can brainstorm real solutions. He pointed to Sarah, who had spoken up earlier. Would you help coordinate? Sure, as long as it's not just empty talk. She smiled faintly, the fire he'd needed igniting between them. He turned to Jamie, the challenge still lingering in the air. You could help too, you know. Have you ever thought about what could happen if we all work together? Jamie sneered, but the flicker of consideration in his eyes surprised James. I don't know what you think you can achieve, but if you set a deadline, I might join in if only to see you fail. Let us prove that things can change, James replied, his voice steady. With a nod from Jamie, the room's energy shifted again, a subtle acknowledgement that competition wasn't always a bad thing. After the meeting, James stepped out into the cool evening air. He took a deep breath, allowing the crispness to wash over him. Night had fallen, and the streets were lit with the soft glow of streetlights. He recalled the laughter and chatter of kids walking home, the the same kids who felt invisible in the shadows of a school that had let them down too long. He had to push this forward. There was no turning back now. Days turned into planning sessions, and the workshop soon blossomed with ideas. Students shared stories, teachers expressed their visions, and James listened, absorbing the clamor of hope that filled the room. They discussed everything from tutoring programs to mental health initiatives. It felt electric, like the school was waking up from a long slumber. At each meeting, Jamie remained the thorn in James's side, offering cynical interjections or countering their ideas. However, the dynamic shifted gradually. Jamie began to share small bits of insight from behind his armor. It was as if he was testing James's resolve, watching for cracks in the foundation of this burgeoning collaboration. Then one day, Sarah pulled James aside. "We're close to something big. But I'm worried about Jamie. There's more to him than he lets on, and he's not going to play nice forever." James frowned, concern swirling inside him. "Then we need to find a way to bring him in, show him he's part of this too." But as they strategized, Jamie's response was louder than their hopes. He stormed into the next workshop, anger pulsing through his veins. "You think this is just a game? You're playing with people's lives, and you may be too naive to see it." The room fell silent, tension so thick it felt suffocating. Jamie's voice was loud and raw, exposing wounds and fears that remained unacknowledged. "Maybe we need to confront our weaknesses," James replied, taking a step forward. "But if we don't try, we'll never know." That's when he saw it, an unmistakable flicker of something in Jamie's eyes. Was it fear? Regret? Or perhaps, a desperate plea for understanding? "What do you really care about, Jamie?" James asked, his voice softening. The question hung in the air, charged with possibilities. Would Jamie open up, or would he slam the door on this fragile alliance? James's heart raced. He could feel the air crackle with unspoken words, a culmination of tension that had been building. Would this be the moment when everything shifted, or were they destined to remain divided? Next time, would Jamie finally reveal what lay beneath his hardened exterior? Or would the fight to unite the community push him further away? Jamie's gaze flickered, a mixture of anger and something deeper. Silence lingered for just a heartbeat longer, but felt like an eternity. The room held its breath, waiting for the storm to break or the dam to crack. It was all very real, the fear of being vulnerable, the fear of being seen. "I care because I have to," Jamie said finally, his voice dropping, exposed. "This isn't just about school. It's about survival." In that instant, everything shifted. James could only nod, feeling the weight of Jamie's words settle in the room like lead. The students around them were still, faces carved with interest, leaning in. This was a moment, a chance for a truth buried beneath layers of hurt. "Tell us more," Sarah urged, her eyes wide, inviting. "We're listening." Jamie seemed to hesitate, as if weighing the risk of going further against the safety of silence. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that screamed frustration. "You don't understand. I'm living in a world where I have to fight every single day just to keep my head above water. I don't trust easily." James felt a pang of empathy. He thought of his own struggles, the sleepless nights worrying about whether his choices could truly lead to change. "You're not alone in this," he said, taking a step closer. "We can stand together." The tension in Jamie's shoulders seemed to soften, if only just. "You say that, but what if you don't know what it's like? What if I join you, and it all falls apart? What am I risking?" "I get that," James replied, standing tall. "But every risk is a chance to make something better. You know the reality of losing. But maybe this could be our chance to win. Together." For a brief moment, uncertainty flickered in Jamie's eyes, battling with stubbornness. Then, unexpectedly, he dropped his gaze to the floor and took a deep breath. "Fine, maybe I'll give this a shot. But don't expect me to go easy on you." Cheers erupted from the group, a wave of relief carrying through the room. Jamie had cracked, just a little, and they all felt it a small victory worth celebrating. Sarah exchanged a knowing smile with James, and the atmosphere shifted. Feeling newfound determination, James gathered everyone in a circle. Let us lay out what we want to accomplish in the next month. We can set goals together and hold each other accountable. Jamie, what do you think we should focus on first? Jamie bristled momentarily at being thrust into the spotlight, but he shrugged, a hint of a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. Let us start with mental health. If we don't address that, everything else we build is just a band-aid. Agreed. That's a solid start, Sarah exclaimed, jotting down notes with feverish excitement. Their voices intermingled, the sound of hope and camaraderie filling the space like sunlight breaking through a once darkened room. Ideas bounced back and forth, energy surged as they broke down barriers. Even Jamie's cynical remarks felt lighter, almost playful, something James hadn't anticipated. But as the workshop progressed and they dove deeper into planning and organizing resources, Jamie's initial vulnerability began to haunt James. The more he got to know Jamie, the clearer it became that the boy's anger was rooted in something far more profound. Was it a shield? A way to deflect the pain he carried? The thought nagged at James like an itch he couldn't scratch. He wanted to dig deeper, but he had to tread carefully. There was a fire beneath Jamie's skepticism. He just had to find a way to ignite it as a force for good. Just as they wrapped up their session, Jamie turned to James with a hard look. Don't think you know everything about me just because I said I'd help. I'm still watching you. I wouldn't have it any other way, James replied, holding Jamie's gaze. Keep me honest. As he walked home that night, a mix of apprehension and excitement filled him. Could they really change the narrative? Could Jamie truly be on their side? James didn't just want to rearrange the pieces of their school, they were shaping something bigger. But what happened when the storm finally broke? Would all their efforts hold together when the rain began to pour, the night wrapped around him like a daunting affirmation of the battles ahead? Would their fragile alliance withstand the truth, or would it crumble when faced with the real trials of vulnerability? And as he reached for the door, the question loomed in his mind, were they strong enough to weather the storm together? The next morning felt different. The sun peeked through James's curtains with a promise of hope, shining brighter than usual, a stark contrast to the weight that pressed on his heart. Walking into school, he could still hear the echoes of last night's discussion in his mind. It had stirred something inside him, a desire to dive deeper, to understand Jamie in ways that transcended each snarky comment. As James made his way through the crowded hallways, he spotted Jamie leaning against a wall, arms crossed. He looked like a fortress, unyielding, yet James sensed cracks in his defenses. Hey, James said, a casual smile on his face. Ready to tackle mental health today? Jamie shrugged but kept a wry grin hidden behind a mask of cool indifference. Yeah, I guess. Let us not screw it up. Together, we may be able to do better than that. A flicker of something, a glimmer of trust, crossed Jamie's face, almost imperceptible. But before anything more could surface, the morning bell rang, slicing through their moment. It was time to gather everyone. To kickstart their plans, they assembled in a classroom that smelled faintly of stale coffee and hope. The energy buzzed, alive with the spirit of collaboration. Sarah took the lead, outlining their mission. We want to create a safe space for all students to talk, to share. Mental health doesn't have to be a taboo. Jamie observed quietly. He wasn't one to speak up in meetings. But when the topic shifted to confidential reporting, he leaned forward. Look, if these kids are going to speak out, they've got to know their stories are safe. We can't afford to let anyone feel betrayed. You all get that, right? James nodded, gratitude swelling within him. Jamie was stepping up, and it felt monumental. As the discussion rolled on, ideas flowed steadily. They crafted plans for peer support groups and awareness campaigns. James could feel his heart racing, an ebb and flow of anxiety mixed with exhilaration. You guys are incredible, Jamie said unexpectedly, breaking his usual aloofness. This is good work. The room pulsed with laughter and light-hearted banter. Hope filled every corner, the kind that could settle in a person's bones. But beneath the surface, James felt the undercurrents of unspoken fears and insecurities weaving through Jamie's bravado, a reminder that the journey was still uphill, Later that day, as students filed out, Jamie lingered. About last night. I just want to say I'm not used to this. I don't know what it means to let others in. Don't take it for granted if I don't react how you think I should. Just be yourself, that's all I ask, James replied, leaning against the doorframe. I'm in this for the long haul, whether it's messy or smooth. There was a beat of silence, a raw vulnerability hanging thick in the air. Jamie simply nodded, his defenses softening just a notch. As they walked out of the building together, a sense of camaraderie began to blossom, slow but steady. The sky had shifted into hues of pink and orange, casting a warm glow over them. Hey, Jamie, James said hesitantly, if you ever want to talk more, I'm here. About anything. Just know I genuinely care. Jamie looked at him, eyes narrowing, but there was a flicker of curiosity instead of irritation. I'll consider it if you hold up your end of the deal. James chuckled, feeling lighter. Deal. You just may find I'm as stubborn as you. As they continued walking, a wave of optimism washed over him, a belief in their emerging partnership, yet, shadows lurked in the corners of their hearts. Jamie's past loomed like a distant storm cloud, waiting for the right moment to break. What would happen when those storms collided? And were they ready for the chaos that might unfold next? The next day brought fresh energy. James could hardly wait to get to school. He felt more than just anticipation, it was a burning need to see what Jamie would bring to the table today. Had this positive shift been a momentary spark, or would it ignite a lasting change? As he entered the building, his heart thumped. He spotted Jamie at the corner of the hall, en route to their usual spot. His normal disaffected posture seemed slightly more relaxed, as if a weight had begun to lift. Morning, Jamie. James called out, trying to match the brightness of the day outside. Yeah, morning, Jamie grunted, but a hint of a smile emerged, creeping across his face. In their first period, they were back in that cluttered, coffee-scented room. The conversation was alive again, bubbling with ideas. Sarah led the charge with enthusiasm, but today, it was Jamie who surprised them all when he raised his hand. Okay, hear me out, he said, leaning forward, confidence clawing its way out. We need to reach out to the 9th graders. They're the ones who might feel lost or overwhelmed. Let us create a buddy system, something that puts them with upperclassmen. A sudden murmur of appreciation filled the room. James's heart soared. Jamie was contributing ideas, removing walls. They started brainstorming ways to make it happen: colorful posters, an online sign-up sheet, even incentives for upperclassmen. Dude, that's brilliant. James exclaimed. Let us bounce ideas off each other tonight. Seriously, this could work. Jamie nodded, his gaze solid and serious. I'll bring snacks. Laughter erupted, puncturing the gathered tension. After a few more discussions and plans, the meeting ended on a high note. Everyone leaving the classroom wore faces bright with hard-earned smiles, but James lingered for a moment, watching Jamie move through the chaos of students like a ship cutting through the sea. After school, the two met at a nearby park, eager to flesh out their plans. Holding sandwiches and drinks, they settled onto a picnic table, sun bathing them in warmth. So, tell me, James started, taking a sip of his soda. What made you think of the buddy system? Jamie looked at his hands, the trust he was showing surprised even him. I kind of remember being a freshman. I felt so lost, like I was invisible. I didn't have anyone to talk to. If I can help even one person feel less alone, James felt a surge of admiration. You're really something, you know that? Don't get all mushy on me, Jamie replied, but his smile was genuine. It's just logic, anyway. Session after session, they dove deeper into each other's stories. They talked about their hopes for the future, their struggles, and the fears they held close. With every conversation, Jamie's walls further crumbled, revealing pieces that made him who he was. Each laugh nudged them closer. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky with strokes of purple and gold, Jamie's gaze flickered with something unspoken. James, he began hesitantly, the softer tone catching James off guard. You're not like the others. I want to keep this going. Our talk, the project, everything. James felt the weight of Jamie's honesty. We will, Jamie. I promise. Together. But just as hope swirled in the air, a dark cloud appeared in Jamie's expression. He looked away, as if shadows danced just beyond his reach. What is it? James asked softly. There are things I don't know how to face. You might regret this suddenly. The warmth of the day felt fleeting, and doubt hung heavy in the air. Could their new bond withstand the unknown? Whatever it is, we can face it, James said, determination creeping in. I'm not backing down. What secrets was Jamie hiding? And could their new friendship survive the truths waiting to be uncovered? The next day dawned with an anxious kind of brightness. James stepped into school, fueled by determination. He didn't know what secrets Jamie carried, but he believed in their budding friendship. They had come too far to let shadows trap them now. As he reached their usual meeting place, there was Jamie, arms crossed, looking like he was wrestling with a storm inside. Ready for a busy day? James asked, forcing a bright smile. Yeah, but I need to talk, Jamie replied, his voice steadier than James had expected. They settled in a quiet corner of the schoolyard, away from prying eyes. Jamie took a deep breath, his gaze fixed on the ground. The tension wrapped around them like a thick fog. Listen, I've had a tough life, all right? His voice trembled slightly. I don't let people in easily because I can't afford to get hurt again. James felt as if the ground beneath him shifted. Jamie's vulnerability struck a chord deep within. I get it, he assured, leaning closer. We all carry something. But you don't have to bear it alone. Jamie's eyes, usually so guarded, flickered with uncertainty and something softer, a flicker of hope, maybe? It's just I'm scared of failure. If I let you in and it all falls apart, I can't handle that. Then let us make sure it doesn't fall apart. James's heart pounded, urgency pushing his words forward. We create something real together, something we can both believe in. Jamie shifted, the weight he'd carried for years wavering slightly. Okay, he said quietly, almost as if he were granting permission for a change. I'm willing to try. The two rose, determination riding high in the air between them. They walked into the community center later that day, ready to tackle the workshop with renewed vigor. As Sarah and the others assembled, the atmosphere buzzed with an electric excitement. James stood tall, clearing his throat. All right, everyone. Today, we dive deeper into our mental health initiative. It's time to unwrap this conversation, to make it real. A chorus of nods greeted him, and that flicker of doubt he'd once felt diminished. Jamie stepped forward then, surprising everyone. I want to share something. The room fell silent, all eyes focused on him. Mental health matters because it's something we're all struggling through, even if we don't talk about it enough. The truth in Jamie's words hung in the air like a heavy fog, but it whispered promises of understanding. I couldn't share before. I was scared, but if we're going to help this community, we have to show them it's okay to be vulnerable. The crowd leaned in as Jamie rallied courage. He saw parents' faces, students nodding, recognizing a connection to their own experiences. Applause broke out, a unified wave of support washing over Jamie like a warm embrace. This was a breakthrough. Their fears began to dissipate, replaced with a sense of collective strength. As they dove into brainstorming sessions, dialogue sparked warm ideas that burst forth about workshops, support groups, and peer connections. The laughter and lively chatter echoed again, each person fueled by the belief that change was possible. Days turned into weeks. James and Jamie formed a steadfast bond, tackling fears and real obstacles. The community began to lean on them, voices rising in unified strength. They didn't shy away from hard conversations. Instead, they welcomed them like old friends. The big day approached, the first community meeting for their initiative. The buzz in the air felt electric. As the sun dipped low, casting a golden glow over the gathering crowd, James felt the thrum of excitement resonate within him. They were truly a family now, coming together for the same purpose, but as the crowd filled the center, Jamie hesitated. James caught the flicker of fear cross his friend's face. "You've got this," he encouraged, stepping beside him. "We're in this together." They stood side by side as the meeting unfolded, voices blending into a melody of hope. And when Jamie finally took the mic, he did so without reservation. "I know what it's like to fight every day feeling invisible, overwhelmed by the weight of expectations. But you're not alone in this fight. We can share our experiences and reshape our futures together." The room erupted into applause, a resounding echo of solidarity. After the meeting, Samuel approached them, eyes beaming with pride. "You both did incredible," he said, clapping them on the back. "You're really making a difference." As they stepped outside, the horizon shimmered with possibilities. James looked at Jamie, a grin on his face. "See? We did it." Jamie smiled back, a genuine warmth radiating from him. "Yeah, I guess we did, didn't we? Thank you for sticking by me." "No, thank you for letting me in," James replied. With a newfound sense of purpose and community binding them, they stood side by side, ready to face whatever came next. Change was not just a destination, it was a journey they would navigate together, and as the sky deepened into dusk, they knew together, they could weather any storm. Now it's your turn. Don't wait, subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss out on more heartwarming stories like this. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep us alive. Share your thoughts in the comments, we want to hear your reactions about this ending. And remember, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this powerful transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't hesitate, not even one more second. Your voice matters.